The human mind from birth to death, explained to help you sleep. Before your first word, before your first memory, before you even knew you existed, your mind was already whispering. You are not your body. You are not even just your brain. You are what flickers in between. The invisible, silent dance between a neuron firing and a feeling forming. And even now, as you lie here, still and quiet, your mind is awake even as it longs to rest. Let us take a journey tonight, not through dreams, but through the mind itself. We'll walk gently, slowly, without rush, from the spark of birth to the final exhale. You don't have to understand everything. You don't even have to stay awake. All you need to do is listen. Because this isn't a lecture. This is a lullaby made of memories, thoughts, and the silence in between. So close your eyes. And we begin. The difference between brain and mind. We often think of the brain and the mind as the same, but they're not. The brain is physical. Grey matter, blood vessels, electrical signals. It weighs about 3 pounds and floats quietly inside your skull. It's an organ, like the heart or the liver. But the mind is not made of cells. It's made of experiences. The mind is what the brain does. It's the dance of thoughts, emotions, memories, dreams, fears, hopes, decisions, and daydreams. It's the you behind your eyes. And that is the journey we begin now, where it all begins. Before you were even born, your mind was already building. Inside your mother's womb, your neurons were firing, your reflexes forming. By the 3rd trimester, your brain could process sound. You heard the muffled world outside, heartbeats, voices, music, the rhythm of life. And the mind, though not yet conscious in the way we understand it, was aware. That's the thing. Consciousness isn't a switch. It's a slow sunrise, faint at first, then brighter, then powerful. A mind that doesn't know itself yet. The early mind has no name. It has no language, but it feels that it recognizes patterns. The rhythm of the mother's voice, the sudden silence when she pauses. Even before birth, the mind starts forming its first memories, not clear pictures, but emotional imprints, safety, warmth, stillness, sound. That's how we all begin, before we learn to speak, before we open our eyes. We are already absorbing the world. Let this be a gentle reminder. You don't have to remember it all. You don't need to understand every word. Let your mind do what it does best. Wander. Wander back. Before homework, before heartache, before worry and comparison and long to-do lists. Wander back to stillness. Tonight, let go of thinking. Just feel. Each section of this journey will take you through a chapter of the mind. You'll meet yourself again at every stage. You'll rediscover what was lost, softly, kindly, without judgment. There is no quiz at the end, no goals, just presence. And maybe, if your eyes haven't closed yet, they will soon. So take a deep breath. Feel your chest rise and fall. Let go of trying. And fall gently into the quiet space of your mind. Section 2. The newborn mind, hook. Before you could speak, you already knew love, not with words, but with warmth, rhythm, and skin-to-skin silence. You were born into light, after months of muffled sound, sudden stillness, and rhythmic heartbeats. The outside world was overwhelming, louder, brighter, colder, but your mind, small, unshaped, and entirely new, had already begun its work. Even as your fingers curled for the first time, your brain was firing millions of signals. Each cry, each cuddle, each pause became a lesson. You weren't just alive, you were already learning, a storm of senses. For a newborn, the world is not made of names, it is made of sensations, touch, warm skin, a sudden breeze, the pressure of being held, sound, a lullaby, a voice you somehow recognize, the hiss of soft breathing, light, shapes, shadows, the way sunlight leaks through closed eyelids. Your brain wasn't yet capable of logic, but it knew what comfort felt like, and your mind, though not yet you in the adult sense, was feeling its way into reality. The importance of faces. From just a few weeks old, your mind began its first obsession. Faces. Your eyes tracked them. Your lips tried to mirror them. Scientists call it mirror neurons. But for you, it was simple. When someone smiled, you tried too. This wasn't mimicry. This was the beginning of empathy, connection without language. You didn't know who you were, but you knew who loved you. And that was enough. Memory without words. Can babies remember? Yes, but not like we do. You didn't remember your first blanket or the sound of your mother's laugh, but your mind stored emotional imprints. Comfort became familiar. Fear became recognizable. Patterns formed, like the rhythm of footsteps approaching your crib. These weren't memories you could tell. They were memories your body felt. And in that way, your story began before you could tell it. Sleep, the mind's first language. Newborns sleep more than they're awake. But it's not wasted time. In those long hours of rest, the brain is rewiring, organizing, pruning. Dreams occur, even without words. Your mind rehearsed life while your body rested. The brain of a newborn forms over 1 million new connections per second. Each sound, each light, each heartbeat shapes the mind in real time. And it all happens silently, in sleep. No thoughts, just awareness. In those early months, you didn't think about the world. You absorbed it. You didn't plan. You didn't judge. You didn't worry. You were present, deeply, instinctively present. And maybe, in some quiet way, that was your most peaceful state. The newborn mind is not a blank page. It's a sponge. And what it soaks in becomes the foundation of you. Now, let that be enough. As you rest tonight, remember this. You came into this world already designed to connect, to feel before knowing, to love before thinking. The newborn you didn't chase perfection. It simply existed. And that's your permission now. To let go. To not try. To just be. In silence. In warmth. In peace. Let the thoughts fade. Let the air slow in your lungs. And let your mind return. Not to memory, but to its first feeling. Safety. Section 3. Early childhood, 2 to 7 years. Hook. Between the ages of 2 and 7, the mind doesn't just grow, it dreams out loud. The world becomes a story, and you, the storyteller. You learned to walk, then you ran, and soon you didn't just see the world, you began to shape it, with pretend tea parties, invisible dragons, and whispered secrets to stuffed animals. Your mind was painting reality with imagination. This stage of life is a soft storm of wonder. You don't remember every detail, but the emotional footprints are still there, quietly holding your sense of safety or your fear of being misunderstood. Let's go back there to when a cardboard box was a spaceship and the word why opened every door. Language becomes thought. Around 2, you began connecting words to ideas. This wasn't just vocabulary, it was identity. Mine. No. More. Each word marked a line between your inner world and what lay beyond it. And as your words expanded, so did your mind. By age 3, you weren't just talking. You were narrating your life. Look, a dog. I'm a superhero. Don't touch that. Every sentence was a mirror, and slowly you began recognizing yourself in your own story. Magical thinking, when dreams felt real. Children between 2 and 7 believe in magic, not because they're naive, but because their minds are wired for possibility. The wind wasn't just air, it was a ghost. Thunder wasn't weather, it was the sky being grumpy. Logic hadn't arrived yet, so the world didn't have to make sense. It only had to feel right. And maybe that's still a better way to live. The birth of morality. You also began to sense rules, not just what was allowed, but what was fair. Sharing became a struggle. Apologies felt heavy. Jealousy arrived quietly. But so did kindness. You began to care, not because someone told you to, but because your brain was developing empathy pathways. This was the mind learning not just how to live, but how to live with others. Emotions were loud. Logic was quiet. Why do young children cry over the wrong color cup? Because at this stage, emotions are louder than reasoning. The brain's prefrontal cortex, the part that calms us, explains things plans ahead, is still under construction. So feelings flood in, and they flood out. It's not drama, it's biology. And even now, in adulthood, those early emotional blueprints still echo. Imagination wasn't escape. It was exploration. When you became a pirate, a unicorn, or a superhero, you weren't escaping reality. You were trying it on. Children rehearse life through stories. It's how we understand danger, courage, loss, and love, all before we experience them. And sometimes, even now, in dreams, you still return to those worlds. What this means for sleep tonight, this stage, 2 to 7, was when the world felt enchanted. And maybe, just for tonight, you can borrow that feeling again. Let go of facts, of plans, of outcomes. Ask why, like a child. Not to challenge, but to wonder. Why do stars twinkle? Why do we dream? Why do goodbyes hurt, even when we know they're coming? Let those questions float, unanswered, like soap bubbles in your mind. Tonight, you don't need conclusions. You only need curiosity. Let it soften your chest, relax your thoughts, and lead you gently into sleep. Because even now, your mind is still a child, just a little quieter. Section 4. Middle childhood, 7 to 12 years. Exactly 700 words. Steady, observant, deeply reflective, sleep-inducing. This is the age when the world becomes a game of rules, and the mind starts wondering what it means to be good. Between 7 and 12, something changes. The imagination doesn't disappear, it just moves inward. Play still exists, But now it comes with rules. Games have scores. Stories have structure. Friendships have consequences. The mind is beginning to organize the chaos. It starts to measure, to compare, to reason, not always correctly, not always kindly, but for the first time, logically. This is the age when you begin to think about thinking. A quiet revolution in the brain. You are now building a map of the world, and you want that map to make sense. You want it to be fair. If they got 2 cookies, why did I only get 1? If I followed the rule, why did they still get mad? The mind is learning that life is not a straight line, that fairness is real, but not always practiced. And so begins the inner courtroom, where the mind sits in quiet judgment, trying to balance emotion with structure. School becomes more than a building. It becomes a mirror. How well do I do? How fast do I learn? How do I compare? Grades begin to matter, not just to parents, but to identity. You are praised for sitting still, for following instructions, for remembering facts. But creativity, that begins to whisper, not because it's gone, but because it waits for permission. The child is no longer simply absorbing, they are now performing. And with performance comes pressure. Friendships deepen. They begin to form around shared rules, shared interests, shared silence. You learn what betrayal feels like and what loyalty costs. The heart doesn't understand all of it, but the mind tries. She said she was my friend. He told my secret. I thought they liked me. These are the first wounds that don't bleed, and often they hurt more because no one sees them. The mind is now aware of time, of past and future. You begin to worry, to anticipate, to remember more clearly. The present shrinks as the mind stretches in both directions, backward into what happened, and forward into what could. It is a quiet kind of growing up. Rules feel safer now. They give structure. They give predictability. But sometimes they also feel cold. You begin to ask deeper questions, even if you don't say them out loud. If someone breaks a rule to protect someone else, are they still wrong? The mind doesn't always find the answer, but the question never really goes away. You may remember this time as the easy years. No major decisions, no responsibilities. But it's not easy to be a child who's beginning to carry thought, to carry awareness, to carry the soft burden of becoming conscious. You learn to lie. You learn to hide feelings. You learn to smile when something hurts. This isn't manipulation. This is social survival. And it begins here. And yet, there is still wonder. You may fall in love with science, with stories, with the sky. You may stare out the window and dream of flying, of saving someone, of being more than you are now. You may not say it, you may not write it, but inside, you're beginning to imagine the person you might become. That quiet, private space is sacred. It's the beginning of self-concept, the first drafts of identity, the earliest blueprints of soul. So as you lie here tonight, if your brain tries to revisit old hurts from that time, forgive yourself. You were trying to figure out how the world works while still learning how to tie your shoes. That's no small task. Let the child in you rest. Let them put down the map for a while. No more puzzles, no more measuring. Just softness, just stillness. You don't need to know all the rules to fall asleep. Sometimes the safest place to be is where there are none. Section 5. The teenage mind. 13 to 19 years. Exactly 700 words. Moody, intimate, poetic, quietly intense. This is not the age of rebellion. This is the age of construction. Built out of chaos, hormones, questions, and the aching need to belong. The teenage mind is not broken. It is blooming, violently, beautifully, terrifyingly. If childhood is a slow sunrise, then adolescence is a thunderstorm. Neurons firing faster, emotions burning hotter, choices made louder. All while the body stretches and the voice deepens and the mirror stops feeling like home. You are not a child, but you are not yet anything else. This is the in-between, and the mind is learning to survive it. The brain is rewiring at full speed. Parts that manage impulse control, judgment, and long-term planning. They're still under construction. But parts responsible for emotion and reward are turned all the way up. That's why it feels so much, why it hurts so much, why a song can save you, why a glance can destroy you. The teenage mind is living with the volume turned up and the brakes only half installed. It is not weakness, it is biology. You begin to question everything. Your parents, your teachers, the meaning of life, the point of homework. You begin to see through things, through smiles, through rules, through systems that once felt sacred. But you're not always sure what to replace them with. So you test, you push, you break and rebuild. And sometimes you isolate, not to disappear, but to become. Identity becomes urgent. Who am I? What do I believe? Who do I want to be around? The answers shift weekly, sometimes daily. You try on masks. You speak in borrowed voices. You copy those you admire, then destroy the imitation the next day. This is not hypocrisy. This is experimentation. The teenage brain is searching not for the right answer, but for something that feels real. Friendships evolve. Now, they're not just play, they're lifelines. You trust your friends more than your family. You'd rather cry to a stranger than explain things at home. Loyalty is everything. So is betrayal. A text can change your week. Silence can feel like violence. You fall in love, hard, even if it only lasts 5 days, even if you never say it out loud, because the heart is awake now, fully, and it is loud. You think about the future, but not in spreadsheets. You dream in feelings. What would freedom feel like? What would love feel like? What if you ran away and started over? The teenage mind wants motion, escape, reinvention. It doesn't want the same meal every night. It wants surprise. It wants meaning. And it wants it now. That urgency, it's not rudeness. It's not impatience. It's the pressure of a self trying to be born. And yet, when night falls, you still wish someone would hold you. Not like a baby, but like a soul. You want to be understood without having to explain everything. You want someone to say, I see you, and mean it. Because in this age, you don't just want love, you want to be known. So tonight, let the teenage part of your mind rest. It's okay if you were loud, if you made mistakes, if you were too much, too quiet, too lost. You were building a brain under pressure. Forgive the chaos. It was never failure. It was foundation. And tonight, you don't need to question who you are. You are not your confusion. You are not your fear. You are not your mistakes. You are the one who survived them. Softly, quietly, bravely. Now sleep. Section 6. Young adulthood, 20 to 35 years. Exactly 700 words. Reflective, hopeful, quietly restless, softly introspective. You're finally old enough to do everything, but still young enough to wonder if you're doing anything right. This is the age of almost. Almost confident, almost independent, almost sure. You can legally sign documents, rent apartments, make career moves, fall in love hard enough to ruin you, and stay up late with no one telling you what to do. And still, there are nights you stare at the ceiling and whisper, "What now?" Because growing up doesn't happen in a moment. It unfolds in quiet doubts, unpaid bills, and learning how to forgive yourself. Your brain, now fully wired, can reason, plan, and reflect. You can look at your past and say, "That wasn't my fault." You can look at your future and say, "I'm not ready." You can live between both truths and still keep going. You're allowed to pause, to question, to ache quietly. This age isn't about arrival. It's about awakening. Careers begin, or don't, or change again and again. You learn the difference between a job and a calling, between being good at something and loving it. You chase ambition, not because you want money or fame, but because you want meaning. A reason to get out of bed that feels like purpose, not pressure. But some mornings you feel like an imposter, because success doesn't always feel like success. Sometimes it just feels like survival with prettier clothes. Relationships shift. Love becomes more than attraction. It becomes a choice. You learn that compatibility isn't magic. It's maintenance. Kindness becomes more important than chemistry. Laughter becomes more healing than lust. You realize some people aren't meant to stay. They were lessons, or mirrors, or the voice you needed at a low point. Loss becomes normal. Closure doesn't always come. You learn to say goodbye without always knowing why. Loneliness visits, even in a crowded room, even in a committed relationship. You look around and wonder, is everyone figuring this out but me? But they're not. Everyone is posting highlights and hiding breakdowns. Your uncertainty is not a weakness. It's proof that you're awake, that you care, that you're still becoming. You begin to understand your past differently. The things you thought were normal weren't. The things you were ashamed of were survivals. You forgive people who never apologized. You let go of stories that were never yours to carry. Healing doesn't come in a straight line. It comes in waves. And you learn to float. This is also the age of firsts that feel final. First apartment, first real heartbreak, first time you call the doctor alone, first time you choose silence over arguing. And in between all these firsts, you start hearing a voice inside you. The one that sounds like truth. It's small, it's soft, but it's real. And it whispers, you're doing okay, even when the world screams otherwise. So tonight, let the young adult in you rest. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to chase what doesn't feel like home. Let the questions wait. Let the comparisons fall silent. Let the plans dissolve into stardust. You are still allowed to not know, to not be there yet, to not feel ready. And still, you are enough. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not late. You are on time, your own time. Breathe and sleep. Section 7. Middle age, 35 to 60 years. Exactly 700 words. Calm, wise, slightly nostalgic, quietly empowering. This is the season of quiet trade-offs, of letting go of things that once felt urgent and learning to live with what matters now. Something settles here, not everything, but something. You are no longer trying to be everything to everyone. You are no longer chasing every version of yourself that could have been. There is still ambition, but it has softened. There is still movement, but it's more intentional. This is the mind, growing deeper instead of wider. The middle-aged brain is efficient. It knows what matters and what doesn't. It forgets things, sure, but it also lets go of drama, of noise, of pretending. You stop performing for the wrong audience. You start saving your energy for the few people who actually see you. That's not giving up. That's growing wise. You begin to reevaluate success, not by salary, not by applause, but by peace, by sleep quality, by how often you laugh, and with whom. You look at your life and start asking better questions. Not, what do they think of me? But, am I living in alignment with myself? And sometimes, the answer is no. So you adjust, silently, without needing permission. Parenthood may enter the picture, or not. Either way, you start to think less about building an empire, and more about what lasts. The mind shifts from legacy in the spotlight to legacy in the hearts of those around you. You teach more, not because you know everything, but because you've made peace with what you don't. You stop needing to win every argument. You begin asking, what is this costing me emotionally? That's emotional maturity, and it doesn't always arrive quietly. Regret can whisper louder here. The life you didn't choose, the dreams you shelved, the time that passed, and how fast. But you also discover something else. The past doesn't own you. Memory is not a prison. It's a perspective. And you can change how you hold it. You can let it soften you instead of harden you. You can forgive versions of yourself that were only trying to survive. Friendships shift again. They become fewer, but deeper, more honest, less convenient. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop keeping people just because they've always been there. Middle age is not the end of youth. It's the beginning of truth. A time where boundaries become blessings and solitude becomes sacred. There's grief too. Of course, people leave, loved ones age. Your body reminds you that nothing stays the same. You lose things, not just people, but identities, roles, certainties. But there's a strange grace in it, in realizing that you can be sad and grateful at the same time. That strength doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means carrying it gently. So tonight, let that middle-aged version of your mind rest, the one that has carried others, held their secrets, paid their bills, bit its tongue. Let it have a moment of softness. Let it set down the armor. Let it exist, without trying to fix anything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be present with what is. Let the regrets dissolve. Let the memories loosen. Let the body unclench. You've done more than enough. Now, sleep. Section 8. The aging mind, 60 to 85 years. Exactly 700 words. Gentle, respectful, poetic, filled with warmth and clarity. The mind slows, but it deepens. The edges blur, but the center holds. You don't remember everything, but you feel everything more clearly. This is not decline. It's refinement. The aging mind is not broken. It is distilled. There's a stillness here, a wisdom not written in books, a kind of knowing that comes not from study, but from surviving. You are no longer rushing toward the future. You are sitting quietly with the present, and sometimes that's all that's needed. The brain does change. Names slip, dates blur. You walk into a room and forget why, but memory is not gone. It's simply rearranged. The mind prioritizes what the heart finds important. You may not remember a recipe, but you remember the smile of someone long gone. You may forget where you left your keys, but you remember the sound of your father's laugh. This isn't failure. It's emotional clarity. The mind keeps what matters. Neuroscience confirms it. Older adults focus more on the positive. Your brain learns to edit pain, highlight joy, and move on quicker. That's not denial, that's protection. After decades of holding pain, the mind learns to stop reopening every wound. It learns that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over replays. And peace comes easier now. You might notice how time feels different, faster, looser. Days melt into one another. But that's not a loss, it's a rhythm. You're no longer counting minutes, you're counting moments. You stop caring how long something takes. You start caring who you spend it with. This is where the mind begins to live for presence, not productivity. Solitude becomes softer, not loneliness, but quiet. A space where the mind can rest without defending itself. You may spend more time alone, but in that aloneness, you discover something. You don't need constant noise to feel alive. You don't need to be seen by many to feel valuable. One real connection, one gentle memory, one kind evening. That's enough now. Regret still visits, of course, but so does forgiveness. You start to see your past selves as children, trying their best. You stop blaming yourself for what you didn't know. You stop needing every door to be reopened. You accept that some answers will never come. And that's okay, because not every story needs an ending to have been worth telling. Love changes too. It becomes quieter, less dramatic, more enduring. You fall in love with silence, with nature, with the way a hand feels in yours without needing to be explained. You stop needing love to fix you. You only need it to accompany you. You don't chase sparks anymore. You chase warmth. So tonight, let the aging part of your mind rest. It has seen too much, held too much, softened when it could have hardened. Let it feel how far it has come. Let it sink into the stillness it has earned. There is nothing more to prove. No performance left, no mask to wear. You have lived, and that is more than enough. Let sleep come now, soft as memory, gentle as breath, deep as the quiet between heartbeats. Rest and be held. Section 9. Final years, 85 plus years. Exactly 700 words, slow, sacred, reverent, softly reflective. There is a hush in these years, not silence, but reverence. The body weakens, the steps slow, but the mind, the quiet mind, begins to shine in a different way. There is no rush anymore, not because time has run out, but because the urgency has faded. What's left now is presence and memory, and a strange, beautiful clarity that only comes from seeing the world over and over again. The mind no longer tries to control life, it simply witnesses it. And sometimes that is wisdom enough. You may forget what day it is, but you remember the song your mother hummed when you were sick. You may forget the name of your doctor, but you remember your wedding dance as if it happened yesterday. The mind is selective now. It trims the noise. It holds on to light. You become a curator of moments, a keeper of time, not for accuracy, but for meaning. And in this curation, there is peace. There may be confusion. Yes, there may be moments when the world feels unfamiliar, when names slip, when the present fractures. But there are also moments of stillness so pure, so wide, you forget what forgetting feels like. A grandchild's laugh, a soft breeze through a window, a familiar scent like old paper or fresh soap. These anchor you, not to facts, but to feeling, and that's all you need now. The brain may slow, but emotion remains. You still feel joy, you still feel pain. You still crave comfort, touch, voice, connection. The soul is not dulled by age. It becomes more exposed, more tender, more transparent. There are fewer walls now, less pretending, just the essence of you and the love that still lives there. People begin to treat you like a memory before you've even left, but you are still here, still becoming, still sensing the world, even if you can't name everything in it. And if you forget someone's name, you still remember how they made you feel. That is the language of the final years. Feeling over fact, essence over detail, truth over trivia. You may speak less, but when you do, people lean in. Because your voice carries decades. You've lived love, loss, laughter, and all the tiny moments in between. You've learned that life isn't about what happens. It's about what we hold on to and what we're willing to let go. You've learned that peace doesn't arrive. You create it, and now it surrounds you. You begin to prepare, not with fear, but with quiet. You remember more than you tell. You feel more than you say. You smile more often, not because everything is perfect, but because you've seen enough to know it doesn't need to be. The final years are not the end. They are the closing chapter. And like any good story, they deserve to be read slowly. So tonight, if your mind still wanders, let it. Let it drift through memories. Let it hum old songs. Let it return to moments you thought were lost. You don't have to hold on to all of it. You only need to feel the warmth it leaves behind. You are not fading. You are completing dot. Let your body rest. Let your thoughts soften. Let your soul stretch its arms and breathe. You have lived well, and now you may sleep well. Section 10, the last thought. Final section plus call to action. Exactly 700 words. Poetic, transcendental, deeply peaceful, with a soft CTA at the end. Every journey ends, but not all endings are loud. Some arrive on a whisper, some close like a book we loved, and some simply exhale. The final thought isn't always profound. It isn't always poetic. Sometimes It's a breath, a face, a flicker of music, a question left unanswered, or a warm memory folded like a blanket across the chest. When the mind reaches its final hour, it does not panic, it does not scream, it slows, like the tide pulling back into itself. And in that soft, sacred closing, there is peace. Neuroscientists have studied the last moments of consciousness. Some believe the brain releases one final surge of clarity, a flash, a dream, a memory collage lit up by all the things you ever loved. They call it the end-of-life rally, that moment when the body is failing, but the mind becomes bright. Just for a little while. We don't know exactly what happens, but those who've witnessed it, they say the face changes, the breathing slows, the eyes seem to see something not in the room. Maybe it's science, maybe it's soul, maybe it's both. This final chapter is not a mistake. It's part of the design. The mind that once built, chased, worried, wept, now rests. Not because it's over, but because it's done enough. The last thought doesn't need to be loud. It only needs to be true. I was loved. I tried. I'm ready. Even silence counts as a final thought. Even sleep. And maybe. Sleep is the practice ground. Every night you surrender. You let the world go. You let your body fall. You let your mind drift, and somehow, you always return. So if tonight feels like a rehearsal, let it. Let the final thought be light. Let it be gentle. You are not gone. You are not lost. You are simply resting deeper than usual. Let the lights go dim now. Let the room blur. Let the breath slow. No need to hold on. No need to fix. No need to finish. The story has been told, and it was beautiful. Now, before we part ways for the night, if this journey brought you any calm, if any moment felt like peace or clarity or stillness you hadn't felt all day, then stay with us. Subscribe. Follow. Let your mind return whenever it needs a soft place to land. This is not the end. This is just where we pause. There will be more journeys, more stories, more minds to explore, slowly, gently, without rush. And whenever you need, we'll be right here, waiting in the quiet, with another candle and another story to help you sleep. Good night, and thank you for dreaming with us. Section 11, How Memory Really Works. Memory is not a vault, not a photograph, not a frozen moment sealed imperfection. It is a brush dipped in emotion, painting the past through the lens of who you become. We believe we remember, but we forget that remembering is a kind of imagining, a slow, led recreation of what might have happened, tinted with how it felt and what we now believe to be true. Memory isn't a copy, it's a remix. It's not truth reserved, it's truth retold. Every time you remember, you're not pressing play on a recording. You're building a scene, piece by piece, from fragments, from feeling, from fire and fog. Memory starts with attention. Most things are never remembered because most things were never fully noticed. Your brain processes thousands of stimuli every minute, colors, sounds, movements, lights. But you don't remember most of them because your mind filters everything through relevance. It chooses what matters based on emotional intensity, surprise, and perceived importance. That filtering system, the brain's attentional gate, is the reason a slap stings longer than the smell of your lunch. It's why your mother's disapproval echoes louder than the sound of traffic outside your window. It's why a compliment from someone you admire stays, while hundreds of casual hellos fade. Memory begins the moment you feel. Emotion flags the moment for storage. Encoding, the first layer. The second step is encoding, transforming a moment into a structure your brain can work with. You don't encode moments as whole movies, you break them apart. Visuals go to the visual cortex, sounds to the auditory centers, emotions to the amygdala, context to the hippocampus. The emotional weight of the experience determines how deeply it gets embedded. That's why moments of trauma or euphoria feel etched into the mind, because they are biochemically. Emotion is the highlighter that marks a memory as worth keeping. Retrieval is not replay. The real magic or mystery is in recall. You think you're watching a playback, but you're not. You're reconstructing the memory from scattered parts. It's like grabbing puzzle pieces that were stored in different rooms and trying to rebuild the picture. But here's the twist. If a piece is missing, your brain fills it in, not with malice, but with asterisk meaning. You don't remember the color of the sky that day. Your brain chooses blue or gray because that feels right. And the more often you retrieve a memory, the more it gets reshaped. Each act of remembering is an act of rewriting. This is called reconsolidation, and it means even your most vivid memory is a story you've revised. Memory and the body there are memories you cannot name, but your body knows. You flinch at a tone of voice. You feel comforted by a certain smell. You avoid a street for reasons you can't explain. These are implicit memories. Memories without words. They live in your nervous system. The body remembers what the mind forgets, and sometimes healing begins not with remembering, but with listening to the body's quiet messages. Emotion edits everything. Memory isn't just facts stored, it's feelings re-experienced. That's why a sad memory feels different when you're happy. That's why joy can sting after a heartbreak. That's why a song you once loved now makes you cry. The present always leaks into the past. Memory is elastic, and every time we touch it, we stretch it a little. Memory and time. Time doesn't flow evenly in memory. Some weeks vanish. Some seconds last forever. You remember beginnings. You remember endings. You remember things that changed you. That's why your first heartbreak feels sharper than your fifth. Why childhood smells can still make you cry. Why last words echo longer than first ones. Memory organizes time by emotion, not by calendar. False memories, yes, false memories are real. You remember things that didn't happen, not because you lied, but because the brain is trying to make sense of incomplete input. Stories you were told, photographs you saw, dreams you had. They blend, and sometimes fiction becomes memory. This is not failure. It's a side effect of imagination, of being human. The purpose of memory. Memory isn't about the past. It's about survival. You don't remember just to remember. You remember to predict, to decide, to protect. The mind keeps patterns, not just facts. Was this person kind, safe, dangerous? Did this choice lead to joy or pain? That's what memory tries to answer, constantly, quietly. Memory and sleep. And then there is sleep. At night, your brain reviews the day, strengthens some memories, weakens others, sorts, prunes, decides. It files emotional events deeper. It rehearses conversations you'll never have again. It whispers dreams woven from leftover thoughts. And sometimes, while you sleep, a memory you didn't know you still had returns. So tonight, let your mind wander. Don't chase perfect recollection. Let your memories rise like fog, soft, shifting, sometimes unrecognizable. They don't have to be complete to be real. They don't have to be pleasant to be worthy. You are not a historian. You are a storyteller, and your stories are allowed to change. So breathe. Let memory do what it does best. Hold the meaningful, soften the painful, and let go of the rest. Sleep. And trust that what needs to be remembered always finds a way back. You are not born a blank slate, and you are not a fixed story. You are shaped, not once, not quickly, but over years in layers, by moments, by mirrors, by memory. What we call personality is not a mask you wear, but a forest you grow. There are paths in you that were carved by others, parents, teachers, siblings, strangers. There are roots that grew in silence, branches that bent toward light, wounds that made you turn inward, joys that made you open again. You are not one thing. You are a slow, shifting becoming, born with a blueprint. Before you took your first breath, you carried a genetic whisper, a set of possibilities, tendencies, patterns waiting to unfold. Some babies are born calm, others restless. Some crave noise, others shrink from it. This is temperament, your nervous system's first language. It's not destiny, but it's the beginning of shape. Genes give you your starting clay, but life is what sculpts it. And every sculptor you meet leaves fingerprints, the mirror of others. Personality forms in relationship. You learn who you are by watching how others respond to you. You smile, they cheer. You cry, they soothe or ignore. You speak, and someone listens or doesn't. Section 12. What shapes personality? You are not born a blank slate, and you are not a fixed story. You are shaped, not once, not quickly, but over years in layers, by moments, by mirrors, by memory. What we call personality is not a mask you wear, but a forest you grow. There are paths in you that were carved by others, parents, teachers, siblings, strangers. There are roots that grew in silence, branches that bent toward light, wounds that made you turn inward, joys that made you open again. You are not one thing. You are a slow, shifting becoming, born with a blueprint. Before you took your first breath, you carried a genetic whisper, a set of possibilities, tendencies, patterns waiting to unfold. Some babies are born calm, others restless. Some crave noise, others shrink from it. This is temperament. Your nervous system's first language. It's not destiny, but it's the beginning of shape. Genes give you your starting clay, but life is what sculpts it. And every sculptor you meet leaves fingerprints, the mirror of others. Personality forms in relationship. You learn who you are by watching how others respond to you. You smile, they cheer, you cry, they soothe or ignore. You speak, and someone listens or doesn't. These are not small things. They are instructions. You start to believe, I am lovable, or I must earn love, I am safe, or I must protect myself, I am seen, or I must be louder to exist. You build your self-understanding from 1,000 silent moments, and that becomes the foundation of personality. The roles of environment. A child raised in warmth learns to trust the world. A child raised in chaos learns to anticipate threat. Neither child chose their lens, but both lived through it. The neighborhood, the home, the rules spoken and unspoken, the way conflict was handled, the way affection was shown, all of it shapes you. You adapted, you adjusted, not to become someone new, but to survive. And sometimes that survival became your style. Core beliefs form quietly. By the time you're 7 or 8, you've already begun to settle into stories about yourself. I'm the smart one. I'm difficult. I'm forgettable. I'm responsible for others. I'm not allowed to fail. These aren't facts. They're interpretations. But they become anchors. And every experience after either challenges that belief or confirms it. And confirmation feels safer. So even pain gets repeated, just to keep the story intact. Adaptation is not authenticity. Many traits you show are not your truth. They're your protection. The people pleaser, the perfectionist, the quiet one, the overachiever. These are not flaws. They're responses. Your personality is not your prison. It is your practice. And you can outgrow a practice without betraying yourself. Personality can change. Despite what we used to believe, personality is not fixed at birth. It changes, slowly, naturally, sometimes suddenly. Trauma changes you. So does healing. Love can rewire you. So can loss. You are constantly in motion, learning new patterns, letting old ones go. The self is not a statue. It's a shoreline, shaped by every wave that has ever touched it. The role of reflection. The more you reflect, the more your personality matures. You begin to catch your patterns. You begin to question your reactions. You begin to ask, is this still me? Or is this who I had to be? That question alone is a turning point. Personality doesn't just grow through time. It grows through attention, the peace of self-acceptance. Eventually, personality stops being performance. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be right. You stop trying to be more. You start being, and that is enough. You allow contradictions, strong and soft, certain and lost, brave and afraid. You become full, not perfect, but real. So tonight, let go of every label you've been taught to wear. Let go of too much. Let go of not enough. Let go of the quiet one. Let go of the fixer. Let go of the strong one. Let go of all of it. You are not a type. You are not a test result. You are not a childhood nickname that stuck too long. You are not only what they saw. You are everything you've seen and carried and questioned. Tonight, breathe. You don't need to know who you are. You only need to feel what's true. For now, that is personality. That is growth. That is freedom. Sleep softly and let your truest self rise slowly in the quiet. Section 13. The emotional brain. You feel before you think. You hurt before you speak. You cry before you understand why. This is not weakness. This is the design. The emotional brain is not the enemy of reason. It is its origin, its foundation, its oldest voice. Before there was language, before there was logic, there was feeling. And that feeling shaped how we survived, how we bonded, how we ran, how we reached for each other. Meet the emotional brain. Deep inside your skull lies the finest limbic system, the emotional core of the mind. At its center is the front amygdala, a tiny almond-shaped structure that acts like an alarm bell, constantly scanning for threat, surprise, opportunity, loss. Beside it, the hippocampus, where memory and meaning intertwine. Together, they build emotional memory, not just what happened, but how it felt. Because your brain does not just remember events, it remembers the tone of them. Was it safe? Was it painful? Was it beautiful? These questions are answered before you even think to ask them. Emotion comes first. You feel, and then you understand. That's the sequence. If something startles you, your body reacts before your mind makes sense of it. If someone rejects you, you feel the ache before you find the words. This is how humans evolved, feeling fast, thinking later. The emotional brain is faster than the rational brain, because in danger, you don't need to understand, you need to move. Emotion shapes attention. Your emotional state decides what you notice. When you're anxious, the world feels sharper. When you're sad, even beauty seems blurred. When you're in love, everything glows. Emotion is the filter, not the distortion, but the focus. It tells your brain, look here, remember this, forget that, protect me from this. That's why a song, a scent, a glance can change your entire mood in a second, because you're not seeing the world, you're feeling it first. Emotion and intelligence. You've heard of IQ, but emotional intelligence. Of course, EQ is just as vital. It's not about avoiding emotion. It's about understanding it, naming it, using it without being used by it. When you can say, I feel sad, instead of, I am broken, you reclaim power. When you can say, I am angry, but I will not harm, you are evolving. Emotional intelligence is not softness, it is mastery, and it begins with awareness. The role of regulation. The emotional brain is ancient, the rational brain is newer, and the two must work together. When emotions rise, the cache prefrontal cortex, your thinking center, can either calm them or be hijacked by them. That's why deep breathing, reflection, mindfulness aren't just wellness trends. They are biological tools, ways of slowing the wave so the boat doesn't tip. You are not meant to suppress emotion, but you are meant to steer it. When emotion overwhelms, sometimes the emotional brain overreacts. Trauma does this. Neglect does this. A lifetime of not being heard or believed or seen. The amygdala becomes too loud. The nervous system stays on alert, and everything feels like a threat. This isn't drama, it's chemistry, and deserves compassion, not shame. Emotional masks. To survive, many of us wear masks. We laugh instead of cry. We shut down instead of shout. We say, I'm fine, when we are falling apart. These masks protect, but they also isolate. The emotional brain is still speaking, but no one hears it. And over time, even we forget what we feel. Healing begins when we take off the mask, even briefly, even alone. Emotional expression. Healing feelings need motion, not suppression. Tears are not failure, they are release. Anger is not evil. It is the body's cry for boundary. Joy is not childish. It is sacred. Laughter, grief, a shiver down your spine. They all say, I am alive. Let them move through you, without judgment, without rush. So tonight, if you've been holding back, let go. If you've been hiding how you feel, you don't have to here. If your chest has felt heavy, you can set it down now. Your emotional brain is not broken. It is brilliant. It has kept you alive through things you could not explain. Let it soften. Let it quiet. Let it rest. Tonight, you don't have to manage everything. You don't have to make sense of the sadness. You don't have to justify the joy. You only have to feel. And then, sleep. Section 14. The psychology of fear. Fear is not weakness. It is ancient wisdom, a survival whisper echoing through the nervous system. It says, be careful. It says, stay safe. But sometimes it says too much. Fear is not always loud. Sometimes it is a quiet tightening in the chest, a pause in the breath, a glance over the shoulder, a worry you can't name. It is not always about danger. Sometimes it's about memory, or loss, or change, or simply the unknown. Fear is not just a feeling. It is a map drawn by your history. Where fear begins, the moment your mind senses threat, the amygdala lights up. That ancient part of the brain that screams, run, or hide, or freeze. Even before your thoughts catch up, your body reacts. Adrenaline surges. Heart rate climbs, muscles tense, breath shortens. This is the Falklandian fight or flight response. And it is not a flaw. It is a feature. It kept our ancestors alive when shadows meant predators and silence meant danger. But today, our fears wear new faces. Modern fears. We no longer run from lions. We fear rejection. We fear judgment. We fear failure. We fear vulnerability. These don't chase us through the woods. They chase us through emails, through conversations, through mirrors. The brain doesn't always know the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one. To the body, a breakup can feel like a bear attack. Learned fear. Not all fear is instinctive. Many fears are learned. A harsh word when you were small. A punishment for speaking up. A silence when you needed comfort. Fear grows when safety is unpredictable. When love is conditional. When attention comes with strings. You begin to associate being seen with being hurt. And so you hide. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Fear and memory. Fearful memories are sticky. The brain remembers danger more vividly than delight, because survival matters more than celebration. That's why you replay the worst-case scenario. That's why compliments fade, but insult echo. The emotional brain wants you to be prepared. It just doesn't always know when to stop. Anxiety fears echo. Fear is in the moment. Anxiety is its echo. Fear says, this is dangerous. Anxiety says, well, what if? What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I can't handle it? These thoughts swirl, loop, grow louder. Even when nothing is wrong, your body prepares for impact, and that preparation becomes exhaustion. Fear's purpose. Fear is not your enemy. It's your alarm system. It scans, warns, protects. But like any alarm, it can become too sensitive, triggering when there's smoke, but no fire. Your job is not to silence fear, but to calibrate it. To ask, is this true? Is this mine? Is this now? Calming the fear brain. You cannot think your way out of fear. You must feel your way through it. Breathe slowly, move gently. Name what you feel. I am scared. I don't know what will happen. I want to feel safe. This is not weakness. This is regulation. The prefrontal cortex, your rational mind, only returns when your body feels safe again. So safety isn't just a feeling, it's a skill. Facing fear with kindness. You don't overcome fear by force. You soften into it. You say, I see you. I understand why you're here. But I'm not in danger anymore. You do this again and again until the body starts to believe it. Healing doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means that fear doesn't make your choices. The fear of being seen. One of the deepest fears is being fully seen. Because what if they don't like what they see? This fear makes us shrink. It makes us perform. It makes us hide behind perfection, humor, silence. But here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You only need to be honest. And that honesty begins when you face the fear of exposure and choose to stay open. So tonight, if fear has been loud, you don't have to fight it. You can sit beside it, hold its hand, and whisper, I hear you. But we are safe. You can let your nervous system exhale. You can feel the bed hold your weight. You can let your body soften into the truth of the present. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to rest and trust that tomorrow you will wake with more courage than you knew you had. Sleep now. The fear will wait. But you don't have to. Section 15. The Architecture of Imagination. Target. 2,000 words. Poetic. Expansive. Sleep-inducing. Imagination is not pretend. It is the blueprint behind reality. It is where the mind goes when the world becomes too small. You were born with it, not as a game, but as a compass, a quiet voice that asked, what if? What else? What could be? The first sparks, before you could read, before you could draw, your imagination was already working. Not just in dreams, but in every shadow you turned into a dragon, in every cloud that looked like a castle, in every stick that became a sword. Imagination doesn't wait for language. It uses anything it can get. Light, sound, emotion, pain, hope. It is the internal architect, building possible worlds from the debris of real ones. The brain's theatre imagination lives everywhere in your brain. It isn't housed in a single lobe. It's a symphony, the default mode network, active when you daydream. The prefrontal cortex, weighing outcomes, mapping futures. The limbic system, colouring everything with feeling. Imagination is not irrational. It is organised chaos. It lets you test-run decisions without living them. It lets you write endings to things that never started. Real versus imagined. The brain doesn't always know. Here's the strange part. Your brain responds to imagination as if it were real. If you imagine yourself failing, your body tenses, your heart races. If you imagine someone hugging you, you feel warmth. This is not illusion, it is biology. The same neural pathways light up for memory, for perception, and for imagining. To the brain, imagination is rehearsal, preparation, a safe space for unsafe things. Why we build other worlds. So why do we imagine? Because reality has edges, and the mind does not like being boxed in. We imagine to escape, to heal, to understand, to warn ourselves, to find joy. A child who's scared imagines safety. An adult who's stuck imagines change. A person grieving imagines what they'd say if they had one more chance. Imagination is not retreat. It is return to possibility. Fantasy isn't false. It's free. There's a difference between lying and imagining. Lying hides truth. Imagination searches for it. When a child tells you the floor is lava, they're not deceiving you. They're inviting you to feel alive, to play again, to believe, even just for a moment, that the impossible might be true. And when adults imagine, we call it vision. We call it invention. We call it art. Imagination in sleep. Dreams are imagination on autopilot. When you sleep, your brain doesn't shut off. It drifts. And in that drift, the mind sews pieces together. A scent from childhood, a sound from yesterday, a fear from tomorrow. And the dream appears. Nonsensical, yes, but meaningful in a way your waking mind can't always explain. Dreams are the proof that your imagination never sleeps. Imagination and anxiety. But imagination isn't always soft. Sometimes it becomes a cage. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You see things not as they are, but as they could go wrong. This is the same tool used against you. Anxiety is imagination with no off switch, fear that narrates too many endings. But even here, the imagination is trying to protect, trying to prepare you, trying, however imperfectly, to keep you safe, reclaiming it as peace. So how do we rest when the imagination is restless? We return it to wonder instead of asking, What will go wrong? We ask. What if I'm okay? What if today ends quietly? What if I don't have to control everything? Let your imagination soften, not silence it, but redirect it from terror to tenderness, from chaos to comfort. Let it paint the world in colors you haven't used in a while. Tonight, let it build softly. As you lie in bed, let your imagination work for you. Let it turn the ceiling into a sky. Let it turn your heartbeat into a lullaby. Let it build a place where you are safe, where time doesn't rush, where no one asks anything of you. You don't need to plan anything now, or solve anything, or pretend to be okay. You only need to drift. Drift into the quiet space where your imagination waits with gentle hands and wild, wordless comfort. Let it build you a dream, not the kind you chase, the kind you rest in, not a place to escape reality, but to remember that something deeper lives beneath it, the part of you that still believes in healing, in love, in softness, in possibility. That part never left. It was only waiting for a quiet night like this. And now, you may sleep. Section 16. The Psychology of Habit Target, 2,000 words. Soft, rhythmic, calming, quietly insightful habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They are not loud, not dramatic, but they shape everything. How you rise, how you speak, how you think when no one is watching. Most of what you do without thinking. That's not laziness, that's design. The mind craves pattern, not because it's boring, but because it's safe. Let's begin. The mind's need for repetition. Every morning you brush your teeth. You don't plan it. You don't question it. You just do it. That's a habit, and it frees your mind. Habits are your brain's way of saving energy, of taking a task, packaging it, and placing it on autopilot. The more you repeat something, the less you need to think about it. And so, you become what you repeat. The rituals, the phrases, the posture of your thoughts. They build your identity quietly. The habit loop. Neuroscientists talk about the habit loop. Cue arrow, routine arrow, reward. Cue, you feel stressed. Routine, you open your phone. Reward, you feel distracted. Cue, the alarm goes off. Routine, you hit snooze. Reward, you feel relief. This loop is not moral. It's mechanical. Your mind isn't trying to help or hurt. It's trying to predict. And the more predictable a routine becomes, the deeper the groove in your neural pathways. It's like water carving a canyon. Each time you repeat, the mind remembers. Habits of the body, habits of the heart. Some habits live in motion, tapping your foot, checking the door twice, reaching for coffee before your eyes are fully open. Others live deeper. The way you talk to yourself, the tone you use when you fail, the stories you silently repeat about who you are. These are emotional habits, and they're the ones that shape us most. If you always assume you're being judged, that's a habit. If you always expect disappointment, that's a habit too. These aren't truths. They're grooves in the mind, worn by time and repetition. How habits are built. Habits form through frequency, not force. Doing something perfectly once does less than doing it gently every day. The mind trusts what it sees often. So if you smile at yourself each morning, even when you don't believe it, eventually the brain believes it matters. Change doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with small consistency. Brushing your inner world like you brush your teeth, quietly, regularly, without applause. Breaking old habits. To break a habit, you don't erase it, you replace it. The loop remains, but you change the routine. The cue, stress. The old habit, scrolling. The new habit, breathing. The cue, loneliness. The old habit, late night texting an ex. The new habit, journaling something kind. Your mind resists change, not because it's cruel, but because it's efficient. It wants the shortest route to relief, so you must teach it that the new path leads to peace, and that takes time. The softness of new habits. Begin gently, not with shame, not with punishment. Habits respond better to kindness than to force. Reward the new habit. Even if the reward is just a whisper, I'm proud of you. Habits become easier when they are connected to identity. Don't say, I'm trying to meditate. Say, I'm the kind of person who makes space to breathe. Don't say, I'm trying to quit. Say, I'm no longer the person who needs that. Identity is sticky. Tie your habit to who you are becoming, and it will hold. Why habits matter for sleep. Sleep is a habit too, not just the act of closing your eyes, but the entire ritual that leads to it. Your brain needs cues, dim light, soft voices, warm drinks, stillness. Each signal whispers to your nervous system, it's time to let go. If your evenings are filled with noise, screens, scrolling, stress, your mind doesn't know how to rest. But if you build a sleep ritual, even 5 minutes long, your body will learn to follow it like a path through the dark. Tonight's ritual. As you lie here, ask yourself gently, what are the habits of thought I've carried today? Did I offer myself kindness or criticism? Did I replay regrets or moments of gratitude? Did I let go when I could have? Or did I hold tight just out of fear? You don't need to judge any of it. You're here now, and every breath is a new cue, a chance to build a different rhythm, a softer one. Let this be a new habit. Every night you can come back here, to this stillness, to this soft unfolding, to the gentle untangling of thought. Let listening become a habit. Let presence become a habit. Let letting go become a habit. The mind is watching, always learning, always shaping, even in sleep. So if you build a little peace before bed, over time, your dreams will learn it too. And one day, without trying, peace will become your pattern, your ritual, your rest. Section 17. The layers of consciousness, awake, asleep, and in between. Target, 2,000 words, poetic, meditative, immersive. Consciousness is not an on-off switch. It is a tide, rising, falling, shifting through states like waves under the moon. You are not just awake or asleep. You are often somewhere in between, floating, flickering, fading into one layer as another begins to glow. This is not brokenness. It is brilliance. Because the mind is not one voice. It is a choir, singing in different rooms of the same house. Let's walk through them, gently. The waking mind. When you are awake, your consciousness stands tall, alert, structured, logical. You respond to names, to time, to calendars and clocks. You tie your identity to memory, to your job, your relationships, your routines. In this state, you plan, you analyze, you move forward. But this is only one layer of you, the most public one. A performance, sometimes. A protector, often. A planner, always. But beneath that, the other layers wait, the falling. As evening comes, the sharpness begins to soften. You forget what day it is. You speak slower. You stare longer. This isn't fatigue. It's transition. Your mind begins to descend from high alert to quiet reception. Thoughts stretch out. The line between memory and imagination blurs. This is the hypnagogic state, the space between waking and sleep. Here, you may see shapes behind your eyes. Hear your name whispered by no one. Feel your limbs float, as if your body is dissolving. You are not asleep, but you are no longer just awake. Sleep, the silent mind. Then slowly, you fall, not down, but inward, into the deepest layer, where consciousness goes dark, or so it seems. You stop responding, you stop remembering, you stop pretending. But the brain, it lights up. In sleep, the mind does its quietest work. It files memories, processes grief, rebuilds neurons, softens pain, stitches meaning. It dreams, not just for entertainment, but for healing. You may not know it, but while you sleep, your mind is listening to you, to your breath, to your heartbeat, to what you've buried, and sometimes it speaks back. Dream. The shadow consciousness. Dreams are not nonsense. They are the symbols your mind chooses when words are too loud. A locked door, a missing train, a flight that floats, but never lands. This is your subconscious, telling you what it couldn't say at breakfast, what it didn't know how to express in daylight. It speaks in images, in metaphors, in memories rearranged. Your ex may appear, not because you miss them, but because they represent a time you haven't resolved. Your childhood home returns, not because you need it, but because a part of you still lives there. Dreams aren't fiction. They're feeling, encoded, encrypted, waiting to be felt, not solved. The rising, hypnopompic state. And then, like mist, you rise again. The alarm hasn't rung yet, but your mind begins to return. This moment, half asleep, half aware, is sacred. The hypnopompic state. Your logic is not yet online, but your imagination still is. You may feel a solution, a sudden calm, an idea that arrived in silence. This is not random. This is access to parts of yourself that hide during the day, to wisdom your busy brain can't always reach. Capture it. Listen. Because once the full light of consciousness returns, this window closes. Consciousness beyond the self. You are more than your waking mind. You are more than your dreams. You are the space between them. Consciousness is not just awareness. It is connection. to what hurts, to what hopes, to what you didn't even know you knew. Some say we have many minds: the analytical mind, the emotional mind, the intuitive mind, the bodily mind, and perhaps even a collective one, a deep well of memory, pattern, and instinct that we all dip from. Is it spiritual, biological? Maybe both. But in moments of awe, in dreams that feel like messages, in synchronicities too strange to ignore, your consciousness reaches out, and something, somewhere, reaches back. Tonight, let the layers settle. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to make sense. Just notice where your mind is. Are you drifting? Are you dissolving? Let that be enough. Feel your weight, then forget it. Let your thoughts come, then let them pass. Sing below your name, below your job, below your worries. Find a version of you that is simply aware. No label, no goal, just presence. Because underneath all the noise, you are still there, awake, asleep, and in between. And that place, that space in the middle, is where peace lives. Not in answers, not in plans, but in knowing you are allowed to just be. So be here, in this moment, in this mind. Let the layers settle. Let the tide rise and fall. Let consciousness do what it does best. Float and carry you to sleep. Section 18. The Secret Life of Inner Dialogue. How Self-Talk Shapes the Mind. Target, 2,000 words. Poetic, calm, reflective, softly transformative. You are not the only voice in your head, but you are the one who decides which voice gets the last word. Self-talk is invisible, but it builds your reality. It narrates your day, shapes your mood, defines your worth, quietly, repeatedly. You may not always notice it, but it notices you. And tonight, we will notice it together. What is self-talk? Self-talk is not the voice you use out loud. It's the whisper behind your decisions, the tone in your thoughts, the silent script playing beneath every moment. It begins early, long before you knew the word I. You heard voices, parents, teachers, strangers, and over time, you made those voices your own. Now, when you trip, you might say, "I'm so stupid." When you succeed, you might think, "They'll find out I'm a fraud." This is not logic. This is programming. A pattern of inner dialogue written by experience and repeated by habit. Your inner narrator, your mind is always narrating. "This is good. That was embarrassing. They must think I'm boring." Even silence has commentary. And here's the truth. Your brain believes what it hears most. So if the voice in your head is always doubting, always criticizing, always rushing, that becomes your lens, not because it's true, but because it's loud, the inner critic. Almost everyone has one, the voice that says, "You're not enough. Why did you say that? You always mess things up." This is the inner critic. It sounds like a bully, but it's not trying to be cruel. It's trying to protect you in a broken way. It learned that being hard on you keeps you safe. Safe from risk, safe from failure, safe from judgment. But in protecting you from harm, it often becomes the harm itself. The power of words. Words shape biology. When you speak harshly to yourself, your body reacts. Cortisol rises, the heart races, the nervous system tightens. When you speak kindly, oxytocin releases, the breath slows, the body softens. Your cells don't know the difference between the voice in your head and the world outside. They only feel the tone. You are listening to you, even when no one else is. Breaking the loop, self-talk becomes a loop. The thought, the emotion it triggers, the action it leads to, and the thought that comes next. If that loop is harsh, you spiral. But if that loop is soft, you heal. The trick is not to think positive, it's to think honest, but with kindness. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, you say, I'm still learning. Instead of, I'll never get it right, you say, this is hard, but I'm trying. It's not delusion, it's compassion. Rewriting the script. To change your self-talk, you don't need a therapist, you need a pause. The next time your mind whispers something cruel, stop, ask, would I say this to a child? Would I say this to a friend? If not, you don't say it to yourself, or you say something better. Try, I made a mistake. That's okay. Today was hard, but I showed up. I'm not my worst moment. Speak to yourself the way you always needed to be spoken to, and slowly, your inner world will soften. Self-talk and sleep. The voice in your head doesn't go silent at night. It speaks when the lights go out. It replays the day, reviews the conversations, regrets the things you said or didn't say. That's why bedtime is sacred, because how you speak to yourself in the dark becomes the tone of your dreams. So tonight, let your inner voice become a lullaby. Not fake, not forced, just kind. Tell yourself, I did my best today. Whatever I didn't finish can wait. I am allowed to rest. And let that voice carry you down into something deeper. Let's practice together. Close your eyes, feel the breath enter and leave. Now think of something you've been harsh about, some way you've spoken to yourself recently that made you feel small. Now change it. Replace it with something softer, something a wise version of you would say. Hold it. Let it echo. Feel how your body shifts when the voice becomes your friend. This is not a trick. This is remembering that the mind is listening. And you are allowed to be gentle. You are not your thoughts. This is important. You are not your thoughts. You are the space that notices them. You are the calm below the noise, the stillness between the sentences. Thoughts will come, some helpful, some harsh, but you get to choose which ones stay. That is the quiet power of being human. A thought to sleep on. As you drift tonight, remember this. The voice inside you can be your worst critic or your greatest ally. And every moment you have a choice to speak with pressure or with peace. Tonight, choose peace. Say, I am safe. I am healing. I am not perfect, but I am trying. I am enough even now. Let these thoughts float. Let them warm you. And when sleep comes, let it carry that softness with it. Because when the mind rests in kindness, everything else begins to rest too. Section 19. When the mind lies. How the brain protects with illusions. Target, 2,000 words. Gentle, poetic, calming, softly philosophical. The mind does not always tell the truth, but not because it's cruel, because it cares. Your brain is a storyteller. It wants you to make sense of the world, even if it has to bend reality to do it. Sometimes it lies so you can live. Not all lies are malicious. Some are medicine. Some are armor. Tonight, we'll look at those quiet illusions and the reasons they're there. The comfort of a story. Imagine this. Something confusing happens. You feel a chill. Something doesn't add up. Your brain rushes in, not with facts, but with meaning. It says, she didn't text back because she's upset. I failed once, so I always will. I don't belong here. It fills in the blanks, not because it's wise, but because it's wired that way. The mind doesn't like gaps. It closes them, even if it has to lie. The brain's illusion engine. Your brain isn't a camera. It doesn't record reality. It edits. It adds music. It rewrites scenes. You don't see the world as it is. You see it as your brain believes it should be. The mind removes details that don't matter, emphasizes the ones that do, paints the world with your past. This is not a flaw. This is survival. Without these shortcuts, you drown in information. But with them, you might miss the truth. Illusions that hurt. Sometimes the brain lies to protect you, but the lie becomes a prison. I'm not lovable. I don't deserve good things. Everyone leaves eventually. These aren't truths. They're echoes of old pain, of memories too sharp to hold directly. So the brain wraps them in certainty, turns fear into fact. It says, if I believe this now, I won't be hurt later. But the hurt already happened. And now the illusion just keeps it alive. Illusions that heal. But the mind also tells beautiful lies. You're stronger than you think. You can do this. Things will get better. Maybe you don't believe these yet. Maybe they're not completely true. But the brain can imagine hope, even when it can't see it. And sometimes that illusion becomes reality. Because when you act like you're brave, you become brave. When you speak as if healing is possible, you make space for it to be. So not all illusions are enemies. Some are seeds. Memory is a story, not a record. Your memories aren't archives. They're stories. They change over time. They adjust to your emotions. They fade. They exaggerate. They forget. Sometimes you remember things more painfully than they were. Other times you soften the edges just to survive. Both are valid, because memory is not for fact. It's for meaning, and meaning evolves. You're not dishonest for remembering something differently. You're human. Self-deception is a shield. Have you ever told yourself, I'm fine, when you weren't? That was not weakness. That was protection. Sometimes the mind needs time before it tells the full truth. It hides parts of the story until you're strong enough to face them. This is not denial. It's pacing. Even your pain deserves gentleness. The mind knows that. And sometimes a soft lie is the doorway to a harder truth. The brain fills in what's missing. Close your eyes. Imagine a face. You don't see every detail. You don't need to. Your brain guesses. It fills in shadows with familiarity, completes patterns with memory. This is how optical illusions work. This is how emotional illusions work too. When you fear abandonment, you may see rejection where none exists. When you fear failure, you may believe others are judging, even if they're not. The mind tries to protect you by predicting pain, but it sometimes predicts too much. Letting go of the lie gently. You don't need to force truth into the mind. You can invite it with softness, with patience. Ask your thoughts, is this true? Or is this old fear wearing a new costume? Ask, what else could be true? What would I believe if I trusted myself more? You're not trying to silence the brain. You're teaching it how to speak more kindly, more clearly, more slowly. That's how illusions unravel, not with violence, but with vision. Sleep is the end of illusion. When you sleep, the illusions fade, the stories pause, the masks fall, the noise quiets. Your brain stops performing, stops predicting, stops defending. And what's left is presence, pure, gentle, undecorated. That's the gift of sleep. It resets the canvas. So tomorrow, your mind can paint again, maybe with softer colors. Drift into clarity. As you lie in bed tonight, ask yourself, what have I believed today that may not be true? You don't need to answer, just notice. Notice the stories, notice the patterns, and then say, with no anger, no force, I see you. I understand why you're here, but I don't need you right now. Let your illusions go dim, like stars fading at dawn, and let what's real, your breath, your warmth, your stillness, rise in their place. This is truth, this is rest, this is you. Section 20. The slow art of letting go. Why the brain clings to what hurts target. 2,000 words. Poetic, calm, emotional, deeply healing. Letting go sounds simple, but the mind doesn't release easily. It holds on to people, to moments, to pain. Not because it's stubborn, but because it believes letting go means losing something important. But what if letting go is not about forgetting? What if it's about softening your grip until what once held you no longer hurts to remember? Why the brain holds on? The brain is a pattern keeper. It logs pain to protect you. A heartbreak, stored so you won't fall too fast again. A betrayal, etched in memory, so you'll spot danger sooner. Even silence, even absence becomes a marker of what not to do. This is not cruelty. This is caution. But sometimes the mind forgets to clear the shelf, and the pain becomes permanent decor. Emotional Velcro. Negative emotions stick harder. A kind word fades in minutes. A cruel one lingers for years. This isn't weakness. It's biology. Psychologists call it the negativity bias. Your brain's way of paying more attention to threats than to peace. Because for our ancestors, missing a danger meant death. But missing a compliment, survivable. Your mind is trying to keep you alive. But now, it may be keeping you stuck, carrying what no longer serves. You carry more than you need. Guilt from things long past, shame that was never yours, memories that replay, not because they're helpful, but because they've been rehearsed. You carry old versions of yourself, people you no longer are, mistakes you made when you didn't know better, and the load gets heavy. Not all at once, but slowly, until one day you realize you've been bent by what you refuse to release. What letting go feels like. It doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like loss. Letting go means admitting it won't be fixed, that the apology may never come, that you may never get the version of closure you hoped for. It means walking away without slamming the door, just closing it quietly and standing in the silence that follows. That is brave. That is healing. The loop of rumination. When something hurts, your brain wants to understand. It replays the scene over and over, hoping to rewrite it, redo it, fix it. But pain doesn't heal by thinking. It heals by feeling. And rumination is thinking in a circle. No exit, no air. To let go, you don't need another answer. You need to stop asking the question. Forgiveness as release. Forgiveness is not saying it was okay. It's saying, I won't carry this anymore. It's not about them. It's about you. You can forgive someone who never apologized, because your healing doesn't depend on their guilt. You don't need to wait for the other person to change. You need only decide that your peace matters more than your proof. That's letting go, making space. Letting go isn't only subtraction, it's creation period. When you let go of someone who hurt you, you make space for someone who won't. When you release the story that says you're broken, you make room for the story that says you're healing. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's releasing the pressure to remember in pain. You can remember softly. You can honor your story without reliving its sharpest parts. A practice in release. Try this. Close your eyes. Picture something you're holding. A regret, a person, an old fear. Now imagine placing it in your palm. No judgment, no rush. Feel its weight. Now, open your hand. Let it fall. Let it float. Let it rest somewhere that isn't you. Say, I don't need to carry this tonight. I can put it down, even just for now. Let your breath become the breeze that moves it away. The night is a natural letting go. Sleep is surrender. The body lets go. The breath slows. The mind stops grasping. That's why sleep heals, because it teaches the brain to release without fear. So tonight, you don't need to force peace. You just need to allow release. One worry, one memory, one breath at a time. What remains? After the letting go, you are not empty. You are clear. You are soft. You are whole. Letting go does not take away your strength. It reveals it, because holding on is survival. But letting go is trust. Trust that you'll still be here, still breathing, still you, even without the thing you thought you needed, especially without it. Say to yourself tonight, I am allowed to stop holding. I am allowed to heal without permission. I am allowed to rest. Let go. Not because you must, but because you're ready, even if only for tonight. Section 21. The mind's relationship with time. Past, present, and imagined futures. Poetic, meditative, and calming for sleep. 2,000 words. Time is not just a number on a clock. It's a rhythm in the mind, a feeling, a memory, a guess. And the mind does not move through time like the body does. It bends it, loops it, freezes it, imagines what never was, and mourns what still lingers. Tonight, we explore time, not by the ticking of seconds, but by the way it breathes inside you. The past is never past. The past is not behind you. It's around you, folded in your shoulders, tucked in the way you hesitate before speaking, etched into your preferences, your fears, your dreams. You don't remember everything, but your nervous system does. The mind stores past not as pages in a book, but as echoes in a cave. Each step forward may awaken a sound that was made years ago, and you wonder, why did that memory return tonight? Why now? Because the past has no calendar. It visits when it wishes, and the mind always answers the door. Memory isn't a mirror, it's a canvas. You think memory is fact. It's not. It's art. Your memories are rewritten each time you recall them, colored by how you feel today, shaped by what you know now, altered by what you wish had happened. The mind does not store moments. It paints them. And sometimes it paints them darker, to warn you, to protect you. Other times, it softens the colors to help you sleep. Neither is wrong, but neither is complete. Because memory isn't about accuracy, it's about meaning, and meaning changes. The present is a slippery thing. The present moment is so small, so quiet. It slips through your fingers before you even know it was there. And yet, the present is all you ever truly have. But the mind struggles to stay here. It wants to run ahead or glance back. It asks, what will happen next? What did I miss before? Because stillness feels unfamiliar, and now is just one breath wide. So the mind reaches out, not because it's impatient, but because it's afraid to sit still with nothing but now. The mind can be trained to stay. You can teach the mind to come home to the moment, not by force, but by invitation. You say, just one breath, stay here. Just one sound, listen. Just one heartbeat. Feel you don't need to empty your mind. Just anchor it to the hum of the fan, to the weight of the blanket, to the slow rise and fall of breath. And for a second you'll notice the present isn't empty. It's full of quiet beauty, of tiny miracles, and your mind can rest there. The future isn't real, but it feels that way. The future is fiction, a dream, a forecast, a guess built from pieces of the past. And yet, it shapes us. We feel anxious about events that haven't happened. We grieve losses that aren't real yet. We plan joy, as if we can control the weather of tomorrow. The mind runs simulations, tries on different timelines, asks, what if? And sometimes that's helpful. Other times, it's exhausting. You're trying to solve problems that don't exist yet, and the mind calls it preparation, but the body calls it stress. You can stop time internally. You cannot slow the clock, but you can slow your perception. Have you ever noticed that a beautiful moment feels longer, or that fear makes seconds feel endless? That's because the brain doesn't measure time. It feels it. And that means you can stretch it through stillness, through breath, through attention. When you're fully present, 1 minute can feel like a small eternity. Not because you control time, but because you entered it completely. That is presence, and presence feels like pause when time spirals. Racing thoughts and loops Some nights, the mind won't stop spinning. You remember something you said wrong. You imagine a disaster that hasn't come. You relive an argument with better replies. This is the mind stuck between past and future, but never here. It's a kind of emotional time travel, but it leaves you dizzy, because the more you loop, the further you float from now. And sleep only comes in the now. So to return, you whisper, I'm not in the past. I'm not in the future. I'm here. I'm breathing. I'm safe. And slowly, the loop breaks. The mind travels without moving. Even as you lie still, the mind moves. It wanders through yesterday's rooms. It steps into tomorrow's hallway. It floats through places you've never been, but somehow still believe in. That's imagination. That's memory. That's the brain's quiet rebellion against the limits of time. And it's beautiful. You can dream of a place and feel comfort. You can remember a face and feel love. Time in the mind is not linear. It's emotional. And tonight, it can be gentle. Let time fade. You don't need to manage time tonight. You don't need to plan or solve or remember. Let time fade. Let the past rest. Let the future sleep. Let the present soften into breath. You are not your schedule. You are not your memories. You are not your fears. You are the quiet being who notices it all and keeps breathing. That is enough. Sleep is the mind's reset. Sleep is the only time your mind releases its grip on time. You dream in flashes, in fragments, in jumbled collages. The clock stops meaning anything, and you float. That's not failure. That's healing. Because to rest, your mind must stop measuring. So tonight, don't count the hours. Don't count the worries. Don't count the regrets. Just lie here and count your breath. Each one, a second, a surrender, a soft rebellion against the rush. And soon, time will let go of you too. Section 22. Why the brain craves closure, even when there's none 2,000 words. Poetic, meditative, gently unraveling emotional knots. Closure is not a moment. It's a longing. A whisper in the back of the mind saying, please, make this make sense. We crave answers not just to know, but to feel finished, to tie the ends, to draw the curtain, to put the pain back in its box and label it resolved. But what if the ending never came? What if the explanation never arrived? What if some stories simply dissolve, unfinished? Tonight, we lie down with that ache, and we learn how to breathe without a period. The mind is a meaning maker. The brain is built for patterns. It searches, sorts, connects. It asks, what happened? Why did they leave? Was it me? Was it fate? Because a mind without meaning feels like a loop with no exit. So it creates stories, not because they're true, but because something is better than nothing. And nothing terrifies the brain. The pain of the unfinished. It's not the loss itself that haunts you. It's the not knowing. Why didn't they explain? Why didn't it work out? Why did life take a turn with no warning, no signal, no note? You stand in the middle of a sentence that just stopped, and the mind tries to finish it anyway, but it never quite fits. So the pain lingers like a book, missing its last page, and you keep rereading the beginning, hoping to change the end. The psychology of Zeigarnik. Bluma Zeigarnik was a psychologist who noticed something strange. People remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. The brain tags things that aren't done and keeps them front of mind. Like a sticky note you can't peel off. That's why you can't stop thinking about the person who ghosted you, the job that ended without feedback, the apology that never came. It's not obsession, it's biology. The brain wants to close the file, even if it has to invent an ending to do so. The mind fills in the gaps. Where facts are missing, the brain inserts fiction. It says, they never loved me. I was never good enough. It must have been my fault. These aren't truths. They're guesses, masquerading as clarity. Because pain plus silence feels worse than pain with blame, even if that blame is pointed inward. It's easier to think you are wrong than to sit in, I'll never know. And so you choose certainty over peace. But what if peace lives in not knowing? Closure is not an answer. Closure is often thought of as something someone gives you. A final talk, a letter, a moment of truth. But most closure doesn't come from others. It comes from accepting the silence, from choosing to walk away even when the story still itches. It comes from saying, I'll never know, and that's okay. That is a boundary. That is a release. That is closure. Not because it fixed everything, but because it freed you from waiting. Grief without resolution. Some wounds have no cause, no villain, no justice, no fix, just grief. The mind fights this. It wants to soothe the universe, wants to know why that person, why that day, why this life. But grief is not a puzzle. It's not solved. It's carried. And the closure you seek may not be an answer. It may simply be permission to mourn, even when nothing makes sense, especially when it doesn't, releasing the need to know. Here's a quiet truth. You don't need all the answers to feel peace. You just need to stop chasing them in circles. Let go of the courtroom in your head. Let go of rewriting what already passed. Say to your mind, you wanted to understand, you tried, and now you can rest. That's not defeat, that's grace. The loop ends where you stop walking. The thoughts that keep returning aren't always clues. Sometimes they're just footsteps on a circular path. You don't need to walk them again. You're allowed to sit down, to step aside, to say, I've thought this thought enough. And when it returns, as it will, you greet it kindly. I've seen you, I've heard you, but I won't follow you tonight. And in that moment, you exit the loop. Sleep is closure's gentle cousin. You might not get answers tonight, but you can get rest. You might not get the ending, but you can end the day. Sleep doesn't need resolution. It only asks for surrender. Let your breath be the period. Let your heartbeat be the rhythm that finishes the line your mind keeps rewriting. Let your body say, this is enough for now, and tomorrow can begin without needing to explain yesterday. What if closure isn't a door closing, but a window opening? Not the end of a story, but the beginning of your healing. Not a solved mystery, but a released expectation. What if you didn't need to be okay with what happened? Only okay with not knowing why. What if you could be at peace without being right? What if you could sleep without answers? You can. Tonight you will. Section 23. The inner child never leaves. How the brain stores our earliest self. Sleep series. Poetic, gentle, emotionally grounding. You were once small, smaller than memory can reach. You wore no name, no shame, no mask, just instincts, curiosity, a hunger for warmth and wonder. And though your body grew, that child never left. Not really. They still whisper when you're afraid. They still flinch when you're rejected. They still glow when someone finally sees you. Because your brain doesn't delete. It stores. And it stored you. Not the you others expected. The real you. Before performance. Before perfection. Before the world told you who to be. The science of the inner child. It's not just metaphor, it's memory. The brain forms neural pathways in childhood that become templates for later life. If love felt conditional, you may now fear being too much. If comfort was rare, you may now numb discomfort before it speaks. If joy was loud and punished, you may now shrink it down to avoid attention. The child learned how to survive, and those lessons were never erased. They became settings, defaults, invisible rules your adult self still follows, unless you rewrite them. Every wound has an origin. Have you ever overreacted to something small? A word, a glance, a tone, and then felt embarrassed? That wasn't all you. That was little you feeling the echo of something older, something deeper, because the brain stores pain with more intensity than joy, especially when you're young, especially when the world is loud and you are still learning what safe feels like. So when you feel too much, remember, it might not be you now. It might be you then still asking to be held. The child isn't gone, just hidden. The inner child doesn't vanish. They hide. Behind logic, behind productivity, behind sarcasm, behind endless busyness. You outgrew the toys, but not the need to feel safe. You learned to pretend, but never stopped longing to be known. The child waits, not frozen in time, but folded into your habits, wrapped in your relationships, tugging at your responses. Not to cause chaos, but to say, I'm still here, and I still matter. The brain stores feelings in the body. When you cried and no one came, the body remembered. When you were punished for needing love, your nervous system adapted. When you were ignored, you learned to perform. And now, you feel tension in places with no current danger. That's not irrational. That's trauma's echo. The brain protects even after the storm has passed, and the child within still scans the sky for rain. Reparenting begins with presence. You can't go back, but you can visit. You can become the parent you needed. You can whisper, I'm here now. You didn't deserve that. You are not too much. This isn't delusion. It's rewiring. Every kind word replaces a cruel one. Every breath of compassion softens an old ache. You don't need to fix the past. You just need to witness the child in you with gentleness. And the brain will start to believe safety is possible again. Play is a portal back. What did you love before you were told to grow up? Drawing, running, daydreaming, Play is not just childish, it's healing, because the brain relaxes when joy is allowed to exist without purpose. So dance badly, laugh loudly, color outside the lines. The child isn't asking for explanation, only permission to exist, to be silly, to feel joy without consequence. And every time you say yes, you let them out of the box. The mirror of triggers. What triggers you also teaches you. That flash of anger, that deep sadness, that desperate need to please. Those are mirrors held up by your inner child, not to shame you, but to guide you. They're saying, this still hurts. This still matters. This is where you stop feeling safe. And your job isn't to silence them. It's to listen. With tenderness, growing without abandoning. Healing doesn't mean deleting the past. It means expanding beyond it. You are not broken. You are layered. Adult, you can make choices. But child, you still feels them. So don't leave them behind. Include them. Ask, what would comfort me right now? What did I never get to say? What did I need that I now have power to give? That is growth with inclusion, with grace. Sleep is the inner child sanctuary. The child within you was often tired, but the world didn't always let them rest. Now you can. Sleep is not just rest. It's restoration. It's returning. In your dreams, you may find that playground again, that old friend, that younger version of you, waiting. Say hello. Stay a while. Let the lullabies of your breath rock them gently. They are safe with you now, because you are the safety they always needed. And tonight, you both sleep. Section 24. Why you don't feel safe. Even when you are. The mind's false alarms. Poetic sleep series. 2,000 words. A slow descent into psychological calm. You lock the doors. You triple check. You smile. You're polite. You're in no danger. But your shoulders stay tense. Your stomach tightens. Your thoughts loop. You sleep, but not deeply. You wake, already bracing. Why? Because your brain doesn't just react to danger, it predicts it. And sometimes it gets it wrong. The brain's safety system is overcautious. Inside your brain, the amygdala stands guard, scanning every moment for anything resembling a threat. Not just lions, not just knives, but tone, glances, silences, unreturned messages, unexplained absences. It's trying to help. It wants to protect you. But in its rush to keep you alive, it often forgets. You're not in danger anymore. You're just uncomfortable. But the alarm still sounds. What was once unsafe is now just unfamiliar. The brain doesn't ask, is this harmful? It asks, have we survived this before? And if the answer is no, or if the memory attached is painful, it sends a signal. Your heart races, your palms sweat. You prepare for a battle that isn't coming. Because to the brain, familiar equals safe, even if familiar was terrible. So safety can feel wrong, and danger can feel like home. Until you teach the brain otherwise. The nervous system doesn't speak in words. It speaks in sensations. A tight chest, a fast breath, a heavy head, a racing heart. These are not overreactions. They're messages. Messages that say, Something feels off, even if nothing is off. And the mistake we make, we argue with it. We tell ourselves to calm down, to stop being dramatic, to get over it. But safety isn't logic. It's felt. And you can't think your way out of fear. You have to soothe your way through it. The alarm system is sensitive, not broken. Think of your mind like a fire alarm. It's meant to detect heat, not just flames. But sometimes the toast burns. No fire, no threat. But the alarm wails anyway. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're just wired to react faster than necessary. Why? Because evolution favored the anxious. The cautious survived. And now you carry that same system in a world that no longer fits it. Hypervigilance is the mind's attempt at control. Always scanning, always thinking ahead, always waiting for something to go wrong so you won't be caught off guard. That's not paranoia. That's a history of unpredictability. If your past taught you that safety was a brief guest, never a resident, then of course your mind became a guard dog. But that guard dog is tired, and it doesn't know how to sleep, not until you give it permission. Safety is a practice, not a feeling. You may not feel safe, but you can create safety. Through rhythm, through softness, through presence, a warm drink, a slow breath, a hand over your heart. Your body won't believe it right away. It will resist. Because fear is faster than calm. But with repetition, you teach the brain. This moment is not a threat. This moment is allowed. The role of routine in safety. The brain calms when it knows what to expect. Predictability is peace. That's why rituals matter. That's why soft routines aren't boring. They're sacred. Lighting a candle, brushing your hair gently, playing the same song before sleep. These are not small things. They are signals. They tell the brain, no surprises here. You can rest. And slowly, the alarms soften. The danger of internalized false beliefs. Sometimes it's not the world that feels unsafe. It's you, to yourself. You expect punishment for joy. You brace for rejection after closeness. You doubt peace because you think you don't deserve it. These are not facts. They're inherited fears, old scripts written by pain. But your brain repeats them like bedtime stories, not because they're true, but because they're known. Tonight, let's start rewriting them. Triggers aren't truth. They're clues. When something makes you spiral, pause. Ask, what is this reminding me of? Because the emotion is real, but it may belong to a different time. Not now, not this place, not this person. Just your brain playing back old danger on a new screen. You don't have to silence it. Just redirect it. Say, this isn't then, this is now, and now is safer than it feels. Sleep is the mind's repair mode. When you finally drift, the brain sorts through it all. It files, it sweeps, it heals. But only if you let it. So tonight, you don't need to solve everything. You don't need to explain your fear. You don't need to justify your anxiety. You just need to breathe. Let your exhale be a signal. Let your softness be proof that no alarm is ringing now. Only the slow, safe hum of a mind being allowed to rest. Section 25. How the mind tells time differently when you're lonely. A lyrical meditation on loneliness, time perception, and the mind's quiet ache. The clock ticks, but it doesn't move. You glance again, still the same. A minute passes. You could have sworn it was 5. Loneliness doesn't freeze time. It stretches it, bends it, hollows it out until every second echoes with the sound of nothing. Because when no one is near, even time gets louder. The perception of time is emotional. Time isn't a number, not really, not to the mind. It's a feeling. A conversation makes an hour vanish. A silence makes a minute feel cruel. When you're surrounded, time is soft. When you're alone, it sharpens. That's not weakness. That's neurology. Your brain tracks time through change, through interaction, through attention. Without those, the mind wanders. And in the wandering, time unravels. Why emptiness feels endless. The lonely mind loops. It replays old scenes. It simulates possible futures. It scans for contact, for noise, for meaning. But all it finds is itself. And that becomes heavy. Not just emotionally, neurologically. Studies show when we are alone and distressed, we overestimate how much time has passed. We age the moment, not in wrinkles, but in weight, how the brain fills in the silence. The mind hates voids. It rushes to fill them, with thoughts, with fears, with invented stories. She hasn't called back. Maybe she's angry. No one replied. Maybe they don't care. This silence, maybe it's permanent. And suddenly, a calm hour becomes an emotional storm. But nothing changed. Only time, only perception, only the mind doing what it does when it's left alone for too long. Why the lonely mind distorts the past. Lonely time isn't just long, it's warped. You remember better times as rosier than they were. You remember faces that weren't really there for you as saviors. Because loneliness isn't about being without people. It's about being without connection. And so the mind tries to rebuild it. Backwards. It glorifies the past because the present feels like it's made of static. The mirror effect. When time reflects you, the way you feel shapes the way you measure time. Sadness slows it. Anxiety fragments it. Joy accelerates it. Love erases it. So if you feel stuck, don't blame your day. Ask your mind, what am I mirroring onto this hour? Because often, when time drags, it's not broken. It's reflecting your unmet need for something living to brush against your attention. The hour that feels like a year. There's a specific kind of minute before bedtime when the world is too quiet. You've scrolled. You've brushed your teeth. You've dimmed the lights. And now you lie there with the weight of an hour that shouldn't feel so heavy. This is where loneliness lives. Not just in absence, but in the echo of your own thoughts bouncing back without reply. Why distraction doesn't always help. We try to escape long time. We binge. We scroll. We refresh. We play noise to keep from hearing the quiet. But it doesn't always help, because distraction doesn't reduce loneliness. It delays it. The moment the screen dims, time comes rushing back, doubled. Like a bill you thought you'd avoided, but only postponed. The brain registers connection as time well spent. Even 5 minutes with someone who sees you feels rich, because connection compresses time, in a good way. Not like stress, which makes it blur. Not like boredom, which makes it drag. but like warmth, which makes it gentle. And the mind remembers that, which is why loneliness hurts even more after you've tasted presence. The contrast amplifies the ache. Reclaiming time through ritual. Lonely time becomes manageable when it becomes intentional. A ritual grounds the mind, not because it makes time move faster, but because it makes it mean something. Light a candle, write a line, stretch your body, water a plant, call yourself back. These acts may seem small, but to the brain, they're anchors. They say, this moment is mine. This hour is sacred, even if I'm the only one in it. Sleep, where time softens again. Lonely time sharpens, but sleep softens everything. When you sleep, you exit the clock. You leave measurement. You enter rhythm. Dreams don't have minutes. They have feelings. And in that space, you're not lonely, because even in your dreams you have you. And maybe that's enough tonight. Section 26. Why reassurance never lasts. The mind's leaky comfort cup. You hear it. You believe it. You exhale for a moment. They say, it's okay. You're safe. I'm here. And you nod. You want to believe it. But 5 minutes later, you check again, ask again, worry again. It's not because you're dramatic or needy or broken. It's because your mind has a leaky cup. Reassurance is absorbed, not stored. Comfort is felt, but it's not always kept, especially when your mind's safety system was wired during chaos. When love was conditional, words were unreliable, and safety came with a warning sign. You learned to sip comfort quickly, but never trust it to last. So even when someone says the right thing, your body still flinches, not because they're wrong, but because your past trained you to expect the rug pulled. So the mind listens, but it also waits for the turn, the shift, the disappointment. That's not distrust, that's wiring. The mind doesn't store comfort like a fact. It stores it like a sensation, and sensations fade. You might remember someone's hug, but the warmth doesn't stay in your muscles. You might recall their words, but the calm doesn't live in your spine. So you chase it again and again, not because you're insatiable, but because your nervous system doesn't know how to keep reassurance. It only knows how to feel it for a moment and then begin bracing again. That's not dysfunction. That's biology. Reassurance leaks. When trust is scarred, trust is the container that holds comfort. And when trust is cracked, the container leaks. Even truth can't stay in a broken cup. You hear, I love you. And your brain whispers, how long? You hear, you're safe. And your gut asks, for now. You hear, it's not your fault. And the mind replies, but isn't it? This isn't attention seeking, it's attention surviving. You're not asking for more than others get. You're trying to believe what they do. But your brain needs more repetition because the cracks are deeper. Safety must be practiced, not just promised. Reassurance works best when it's not just spoken, but shown repeatedly. When safety is experienced in rhythm, consistency, calm tone, presence that doesn't retreat. Because the mind learns from patterns, not promises. Each calm interaction adds a drop toward repair. And slowly, what once leaked through begins to hold. You don't need to be fixed, just held longer. So tonight, if reassurance leaks, know this: you are not too much. You are not broken. You are a mind that learned to scan for danger to survive. And that scanner is tired, but it can be retrained. Not with one sentence, but with presence, with someone or something that stays, a voice that doesn't rush you, a breath that doesn't shame you, a silence that isn't cold. That's what heals a leaky cup. Not louder comfort, but longer comfort. Tonight, let this voice be a drop. Gentle, repetitive, enough, just enough. Section 27. Why the mind fears boredom. The hidden terror of emptiness. You say you're bored. You reach for your phone. You scroll. You switch tabs. You think it's about attention. But it's not. It's about what begins to rise when silence takes center stage. And there's nothing left to distract you from yourself. Boredom is not a lack of stimulation. It's a signal. An alarm the mind sets off when emptiness threatens to reveal what you've been trying not to feel. Because in boredom, you are alone, not just in the room, but inside your mind. It's the place where your thoughts echo and there's no background noise to hide behind. No multitasking, no urgency, just space. And for many, space doesn't feel freeing, it feels threatening. Boredom awakens what's buried. Stillness strips the stage of actors, and what's left behind is truth. Uncomfortable, raw, and sometimes forgotten. Old memories bubble up. Wounds you've patched but not healed. Questions without answers. Grief without names. Boredom becomes the mind's mirror. Not because you ask for it, but because mirrors appear when nothing blocks the light. This is why the mind races to fill time, TV, TikTok, tasks, even arguments sometimes. Anything to feel less alone with yourself. But boredom isn't the enemy. It's a doorway. One we've been taught to avoid because what lies on the other side feels unfamiliar. But unfamiliar isn't unsafe. It's just unexplored. The mind craves movement, but not always direction. When you feel bored, it's not that you need purpose immediately. Just something to chase. Even meaningless scrolling gives the illusion of forward motion. A mental treadmill that goes nowhere. But at least it moves. But boredom reminds you that stillness exists. And stillness doesn't reward you. It doesn't applaud. It doesn't notify. It simply waits. It whispers, not shouts. And in that whisper, sometimes, you find the most honest thoughts. The ones that only arrive when everything else leaves. Would you like me to continue this section to completion now? What boredom really unmasks. Boredom is not emptiness. It is an invitation. But one we decline again and again because we don't like what it brings to the surface. It asks, what are you avoiding? What story haven't you finished telling yourself? What emotion hasn't been named yet? What part of you is waiting to be heard? You think you're bored, but your body feels something else. Restlessness, edginess, anxiety with no clear name. Because stillness awakens the unnamed, and the unnamed feels like a threat. But naming things, that's where freedom begins. The slow gifts of stillness. In cultures that praise hustle, boredom is treated like failure. But what if boredom is the birthplace of everything profound? Art begins in boredom. Breakthroughs begin in boredom. Self-awareness begins in boredom. It is the soil where curiosity grows, the silent space where wonder stretches. But only if you stay long enough to feel the discomfort bloom into insight. The first 5 minutes may itch. The next 5 might ache. But then something shifts. You notice your breath. You hear your own heartbeat. And behind the noise you used to chase, you discover presence. Boredom before sleep. At night, when you lie in bed and there's nothing left to do. The mind panics. No podcast, no playlist, just darkness, breath, and memory. And that's when boredom taps your shoulder and says, I brought company, old thoughts, unfinished conversations, a replay of what you should have said, what you fear might happen, what you wish you could forget. But what if you didn't turn away? What if you breathed into it, stayed with it, let boredom pass through you like a wave that loses power the more you let it wash over you? Sleep doesn't come through escape. It comes through surrender. Meeting the void without fear. What if the void isn't empty? What if it's just unfiltered? No lights, no labels, just you, unmasked. Maybe that's what boredom threatens. The mirror with no edits. But maybe that's also what saves you. Because beneath the silence is the part of you that still wonders, still dreams, still believes there's meaning in moments that don't need an audience. You are not broken for being bored. You are human for resisting stillness. You are brave for returning to it. Tonight, let boredom be a bridge. Let it be the thing that guides you not to stimulation, but to self. Let the silence stretch. Let the discomfort speak. And as the mind begins to protest, whisper back, I'm listening. I'm here. I'm not afraid of the quiet anymore. Because when you can sit with boredom, you no longer fear being alone. And when you no longer fear that, you begin to rest. Truly, deeply rest. Not because the world is quieter, but because you are. Section 28. The mind and meaning. Why we invent purpose to stay sane. You wake up, you stretch, you check the time, and almost instinctively, you begin the search. What needs to be done today? Who needs you? What are you building toward? What matters? Not because you're ambitious, not because you're productive, but because your mind, terrified of drifting, clings to a reason, any reason. Let us begin this soft descent into the mind's oldest craving, purpose. Because the alternative, meaninglessness, is a fog the mind can't bear. When things don't make sense, you fill in the gaps. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. The mind assigns stories to people, to pain, to coincidence. It needs structure. It builds narrative. It makes a villain, a hero, a quest. Because randomness feels like drowning. And purpose feels like a raft. Even when the purpose is tiny. Even when it's invented. The mind needs a thread to follow. A pattern to recognize. A why, no matter how quiet. When there's no purpose, the mind doesn't rest. It ruminates. It wanders into hollow halls of what if, of was that all, of why did it happen. It digs into moments like a child searching for treasure beneath the sand. It replays the breakup, the failure, the quiet goodbye, not to suffer, but to explain, because if the pain has meaning, then it has shape, And if it has shape, then you can hold it. And if you can hold it, you're no longer powerless. The mind doesn't need happiness. It needs coherence. A line between point A and B, even if it's drawn in chalk, even if it rains the next moment. We're told that meaning must be majestic, life purpose, a calling, a single glowing reason why we were born. But that's not how the mind survives. That's not how the mind stays sane. The real kind of purpose can be small, quiet, gentle as I'll water my plants today, simple as I'll make someone smile, as unremarkable as I want to see what happens next. Because to the mind, continuation is a kind of meaning. Not giving up is a kind of story. A tragedy happens. You cry. You break. And then days pass, weeks, months. And one day you say, it taught me something. It made me stronger. I wouldn't be who I am without it. That doesn't mean the pain was good, but it means you survived it by threading it into meaning. That is the mind's most sacred work, not logic, not memory, but turning suffering into story, not for others, but for itself, so it can go on. At night, when the lights are off and the mind is left to itself, meaning becomes even more important, because in the dark, everything returns. Old regrets, new fears, echoes of things unsaid. The mind doesn't want to be right. It wants to be anchored. So it whispers, I made the best choice I could. They didn't know better. There was a reason. Even when there wasn't. Even when things just happened. Because to fall asleep, the mind must rest in the narrative that says, you are safe now. You made it through. And it meant something. You don't need to find the ultimate truth. You just need a version that helps you keep walking. The brain doesn't require cosmic answers. It just needs enough. Like a candle that keeps the dark from swallowing the room. You can invent purpose the way a child builds castles from dust. And that doesn't make it fake. It makes it yours. I write because it soothes me. I forgive because I need peace. I keep going because I want to see the morning. These are not delusions. They're survival poems. You don't have to change the world or solve everything or be everything to everyone. Tonight, your purpose can be to rest, to let the body recover, to let the mind slow down, to believe, just for now, that being here is enough, that breathing is participation, that closing your eyes is an act of quiet faith. And as you slip beneath sleep's gentle veil, you don't need to know where your story goes next, only that it's still unfolding, and you're still the one telling it, one peaceful moment at a time. Section 29. The mind's last illusion. Why we fear the end, even when we're tired. There's a strange silence that settles near the end. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of awareness, a knowing that this chapter, this life, this flicker of thought in a vast cosmos will soon dim. And yet, even in moments of exhaustion, even when the body sighs with weariness, the mind resists, not loudly, not with panic, but with quiet clinging to the smallest of routines, to unfinished sentences, to the scent of tea in the morning, to the way light slants through blinds. We fear the end, not always because of pain, but because of interruption, because the mind, trained to continue, trained to understand, cannot compute done. Even in dreams, the story continues. Even in grief, there is a next breath. But what comes when there is no next breath? That's the illusion, that life is a line, that the mind can always explain, always bridge, always return. But the truth, there comes a stillness that doesn't end, and the mind, no matter how evolved, cannot touch it. Yet maybe it doesn't have to. The fear is not of nothingness, it is of disconnection. The mind wants a witness, someone to see, someone to know, to vanish without trace. Feels like erasure, and so it gathers moments, memories, proof of life, as if love and laughter can anchor it, as if the echo of a name can defeat the silence. But the silence doesn't come to erase, it comes to return, to merge what is individual back into what is infinite. And that terrifies the part of us that believes we were always separate. What if letting go isn't falling, but dissolving, like sugar in tea, like mist into morning? No crash, no bang, just the slow unmaking of form, of thought, of the I. And what remains? That is not for the mind to answer, because the mind is the question. When it goes quiet, there is no one left to ask. So maybe the end is not meant to be solved, just surrendered to, not with fear, but with softness, like a candle finally allowed to go out. We spend years learning how to hold on, to build, to plan, to stay. But no one teaches us how to release, how to let the story end mid-sentence, how to wave, not knowing if anyone sees. The mind clings because clinging feels like living. But sometimes letting go is the final act of being alive. It is trust in the unknown, in the unfolding, in the space beyond comprehension. Not an abandonment of self, but a return to something softer, wider, wordless. And when the moment comes, perhaps the mind doesn't disappear. Perhaps it opens, expands, diffuses like perfume into sky. Perhaps the end isn't an ending at all, but a dissolving into something so still, so vast, that there is no need for questions, no need for fear, just quiet and light, and the last thought whispering, I was here, I was loved, and now I rest. Because the mind's final illusion is that rest is loss, but truly it is homecoming. The exhale after a lifetime of holding breath. The hush that says, thank you, that's enough. Sleep now, you've traveled far. Let the mind rest. Let the self soften. Let go. Let go. Let go. Section 30. The mind lets go. A soft goodbye to thought. It begins not with silence, but with surrender. The kind that doesn't need permission. The kind that arrives like a tide, softly, steadily, and completely. Not because you gave up, but because you finally let it down. The guard, the effort, the need to understand. The mind loosens its grip not because it is defeated, but because it has told its final story. Section 30. The mind lets go. A soft goodbye to thought. It begins not with silence, but with surrender. The kind that doesn't need permission. The kind that arrives like a tide, softly, steadily, and completely. Not because you gave up, but because you finally let it down. The guard, the effort, the need to understand. The mind loosens its grip, not because it is defeated, but because it has told its final story. There is a beauty in the unwinding, like pages fluttering closed after a long read novel, like footsteps slowing as home draws near. Thoughts no longer sprint to conclusions. They simply dissolve into air, into quiet, into nothing and everything. The self becomes soft. The edges fade. There's no fight left, because there's nothing left to prove. You are not losing yourself. You are returning to the place where self was never required. The mind, once so busy, becomes a ripple, then a still pond, then the memory of water. There are no more plans, no more regrets, only this, a gentle floating beyond naming, beyond framing, beyond mind. If there is a final thought, it does not speak in words, it speaks in presence. A feeling like being cradled by the universe. A knowing that says, it was all part of the story, and now the story rests. You are not alone in this letting go. Millions before you have laid down their thoughts, their questions, their wonders, and none of them were lost, only returned, only released. You join them in this final chapter. A breath at the threshold, a whisper into the wind, a softness so complete it cannot be held, and in that softness peace, not dramatic, not declared, just there, like dusk, like sleep. If you listen now, you might not hear anything. No voice, no narration, just space. But that space is sacred. It is the final room where the mind bows out, not in defeat, but in reverence. You've thought enough, you've felt enough, you've reached the shore. Now float, now fade, now sleep. Let this be the last word. You were here, and you mattered, and you are allowed to rest now. The thoughts can go, the noise can stop. The mind has done its work. All that's left is peace. Sleep, gentle listener. Sleep, sleep, sleep.